Namaste and greetings. I, Remat Arora, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. Today marks day 1 of Fundamentals of Public Policy, Cohort 2, an online spring school program, a 1-month immersive online certificate training course. This training program is organized by IMPRI. To kick things off, let's begin with a concise overview of the program. Public policies integrate and far-reaching influence on our lives, both knowingly and unknowingly, can be a labyrinth to navigate. This course is designed to demystify this complex landscape by delving deep into its warrants, caveats, and myriad facets of public policy. This cohort will continue its focus on public policy in the context of India, offering an in-depth exploration of its underpinnings and intricacies. Over the course of 10 enlightening sessions, participants will gain a unique perspective on the multifaceted challenges of contemporary governance. The topics covered will span a spectrum of critical areas, including economics and agriculture, foreign policy, urban management and policy, climate change and environmental policy, disaster management, the role of media and civil society, and emerging themes like feminism and policy making. The chair for this program is Professor Mukul Asherji, former professor, Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, visiting distinguished professor IMPRI. This program has an excellent panel of experts who will be sharing their expertise for the duration of the program. The distinguished experts include Mr. V Ramakrishnan ji, visiting senior fellow, IMPRI, Managing Director, Organization Development Singapore. Ambassador Bhaskar Balakrishnan ji, former Ambassador of India to Greece and Cuba, former member of India's National Security Advisory Board, Science Diplomacy Fellow, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, New Delhi. Dr. Soumyadip Chattopadhyay ji, visiting senior fellow, IMPRI, Associate Professor, Vishwa Bharati Shanti Niketan. Dr. Radhika Pandey ji, Associate Professor, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, visiting senior fellow, IMPRI. Mr. Ashish Chandar Kaur ji, Counselor, Permanent Mission of India to the World Trade Organization in Geneva, Government of India. Ambassador Shashank ji, former Foreign Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, India's former Ambassador to Denmark, South Korea and Libya. Mr. Urvashi Prasad ji, Director, Office of Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog, New Delhi. Professor Anil K. Gupta ji, Head of Division, International Cooperation, Advisory Services, E-Learning and Media Portfolio. Full Professor of Policy Planning and Strategies, National Institute of Disaster Management. Professor Chetan Vaidya ji, Independent Director, GIFT City, former Director, School of Planning and Architecture and National Institute of Urban Affairs. Visiting Distinguished Professor, IMPRI. Mr. T.K. Arun ji, Senior Journalist, New Delhi. Professor Randhir Singh Rathore ji, Skill Professor, Policy Planning at Sri Vishwa Karma Skill University, Haryana, visiting Professor, IMPRI. Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting Distinguished Professor, IMPRI, Vice President, Indian Association of Women's Studies, former Professor of Economics, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and Mr. Yash Agarwal ji, Founder, Public Policy India, New Delhi. The panel of conveners comprises of Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting Distinguished Professor, IMPRI, Professor Gumadi Sridevi ji, Professor, School of Economics at University of Hyderabad, visiting Professor, IMPRI, Dr. Simi Mehta ji, CEO and Editorial Director, IMPRI, and Dr. Arjun Kumar ji, Director, IMPRI. Proceeding further, I welcome all the participants to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for being interested and putting your time, energy, and effort into joining this transformative experience, equipping you with valuable knowledge and perspectives to contribute meaningfully to the ongoing discourse on public policy. We have also shared the course outline and reading resources in your email for your kind perusal. Before we start today's session, I would like to remind the housekeeping announcements once again. Please join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. Now, without any further ado, let us start our program. It is my honor and privilege to invite the chair for the program, Professor Mukul Asherji, to start the program with the chair's opening remarks. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much. It is a privilege to be participating in this very timely and relevant program. This is Cohort 2 of Fundamentals of Public Policy. This is one additional example of the public good that IMPRI has been creating and presenting to the public at very regular intervals, and I heartily congratulate them. It's a privilege to be here. Let us start the now my remarks on introduction to the course. What I have done is first provide some relevant thoughts so that we are not all over, that focuses our mind on the issues. Then some relevant developments, recent developments that have occurred, that have got bearing on understanding the program content. Finally, I will briefly go through all the topics that we have to emphasize that this is a integrated program which should be assessed at the end of the program. Each participant must ask, what have I brought in today? And when the program is over, what additional value has been created for me, for the participant, through this program? And that is the real value of the program, of what the value added is going to be. So now, since the time is limited, I will go over very quickly with this. The first one, which is relevant to all of us, your degree is just a piece of paper. Your education is seen in your behavior. In Hindi, education is seen in sanskar. And the example is given in next slide. So it is your behavior, not paper degrees, that defines whether you are educated. There are a lot of people with degrees, very few people who are educated. Often neglected trait in studying global economic history affecting policy outcomes is niyat, intent. The same capabilities could provide adverse results if not accompanied by good niyat. So we need, this is an intangible that is often not paid much attention in public policy. This is a quote from PM Modi, which is very, very relevant for us. He says, referring to the use of science in the modern day, science is universal. Scientific principles, theory of relativity, and so on, laws of physics, all these are universal. But the technology is local. The PM further emphasized how to make use of science for technological advancement in these areas, because technology is local. Science is universal. Now, one point that is important is continuous seeking of knowledge, and the knowledge where it is relevant. So all of you would have heard of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya that was just inaugurated. Now, a lot of people are coming to Raman. So who has got experience in queue management in the country among the temples? It's Tirupati is one very important part. So you go to Tirupati and you say that I want to learn from you. So this indicates niyat. Seek knowledge about everyday problems and desire for improvement. So if you can do good queue management and learn from Tirupati, they will, Ram Mandir will benefit and people will benefit. Sridhar Vembu, who is an entrepreneur based born in 68, Indian billionaire, founder of CEO of Zoho Corporation, 55th richest person in India. His two observations are very relevant. First, scientific method. First, the data, then the analysis. Third, the policy implication. Finally, the views. So as chairperson, my urgent request and a very humble request is please do not have fact-free opinions. Ask yourself, how do I know what I know? What is my source? What is my data? What is the analysis I have done? And so on, before throwing out opinions. And that is a very, very important point that Sridhar Vembu is making. And this it is needed to not among the participants, but the faculty, administrators, and others. With digital technology, data analysis, and basics of AI need to become an integral part of our curriculums and projects and thesis set as much as possible to demonstrate competence in numerical literacy. So you can see I'm laying down the kind of things that you need to pick up. The second observation he makes is that the US trained Indian economists, I'm one of them, I studied in US, reflect that flawed approach of naively elevating contextual US experience as universal. Okay? It is not. It's just the US data. US data is available. So many of us, I did my thesis on the fiscal policy during the first 3 5-year plans of India. But a lot of my friends, Indian friends, they did it using some US database manipulating. But so your union card, but local context, empirical studies, and institutional and market structures are relevant for public policy. And projects and theses could be to augment this aspect for India. Many government schemes have dashboards, extensive data to make this possible, and we need to give more emphasis to this area. Now we go to the more global thoughts. This is by Frederick von Hayek, prize lecture in Stockholm on receiving the 1974 Nobel Prize in Economics. What does he say? I prefer true but imperfect knowledge, even if it leaves much indeterminate and unpretended, to a pretense of exact knowledge that is likely to be false. The credit which the apparent conformity with recognized scientific standards can gain for seemingly, but theories may, as the present instance shows, have grave consequences. So don't get carried away by current fads that occur in economic theory as well and in public policy as well. So here is a George Bernard Shaw, Man and Superman, 1904. Beware of false knowledge, more dangerous than ignorance. So be humble. Okay? All of us, knowledge has exploded so much, we need to be humble and not have firm opinions unless you have done what the scientific method says. Then we move to a little bit different area. A good, solid, well-run business does more against inequality and injustice in society than all the screechings by the social science academics and activists. This is by Diva Jain on Twitter, a young scholar that I admire and follow. Nothing in the world is free. There's another young scholar, Kiran Kumar, on Twitter. Nothing in the world is free. It is just that you pay for it in another form. You pay later. Your family will pay in the future. Because all things require resources, which are scarce: land, labor, capital, managerial ability, entrepreneurship, nature, environment, water, and all that. All that is required. So nothing is free. It's just that you pay for it in another form, you pay later, your family will pay in the future, and so on. So my favorite exam question in the course that I was teaching at Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, which I designed for many years, it was called Economic Reasoning and Public Policy. And my favorite exam question was, explain why some service, amenity, commodity that is given free, water, for example, is in the end very expensive for the households, entity providing it for free, and the society. Now, at the end of the program, if you can answer this, that will, in an analytical manner, not opinions, that using economic reasoning, Indian examples, that would be good. And I'll ask you in the last wrap up about this again. Please remind me if I don't. So, next one, thought. Development is as much about breaking mental complexes and barriers. It is about then it is about productive investment, new technology, new ways of doing things. Okay? So mental complex and barrier, particularly for us, which had a colonial mindset for a very long time, and we are trying to break it now. Oikophobia is a term that I hope all of you will imbibe during the program. It is a term which stands for aversion to a home environment or an abnormal fear, phobia of one's home, and also a tendency to reject or to minimize one's own culture and to keep on praising other cultures. So we shouldn't be going to the authority. Some guy somewhere 200 years ago said this, so this is that's it. Okay, and that kind of economics or anything is not very useful. It is critical that these attributes be avoided and we become competent at the managing oikophobia. This is a example that was given on how women are breaking barriers through business. Now we go to Aristotle and the American economist named Thomas Sowell. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So we go back. sanskar, behavior, niyat, all of that we neglect are critical and for the national character, for building the national character. And I hope that our course will emphasize that or reinforce that. Sowell, there was a time when we honored those who created the prosperity and the freedom that we enjoy. Today, we honor the complainers and sue the creators. Perhaps that is inevitable in an era when we no longer count our blessings, but instead count all our unfulfilled wishes. He's speaking about United States. Okay, so but it is applicable to not. I talked about changing the mindset. Here is Foreign Minister Jaishankar. He says, need to put behind era of seeking approval of others. Be confident. And one thing that this government has done over the last 10 years is to increase our self-confidence as a nation and pride in being an Indian. And that is very, very critical. Now, some books, Bharat Ek Nayi Soch, and this is by Harsh Madhusudan and Rajiv Mantri. They also have an English version of it. It's called A New Idea of India. Broken money. And increasingly, the global financial system will continue to affect us very deeply. So this is by Lynn A. Alden, is a very, very interesting book. And this is by Rahul Sivshankar, Siddharth Talaya. Rahul was, as you know, with the Times Now. He's no longer with them. But he has written a book, Modi and India, 2024, and the Battle for Bharat. Okay, so this is a interesting. This is a society that lacks a specific word for efficiency or productivity in their language is likely to have less belief in these concepts and may experience a lower per capita growth rate. This by Kunal Shah. Again, I picked it up from the Twitter. But think about it. In all the public policy debates you hear in the papers, on TV, everywhere, how much does the word efficiency and productivity come up in public policy? It should. Lot, but it doesn't. And we need to change that. So part of the mindset change about this program is to try to bring more of this. Experience only teaches the teachable. Okay. Otherwise, it's not really an experience. AI-powered disinformation emerges as major risk for nations, including India, in the election year of 2024. This is from Economic Times. So the technologies, the government's 2024 report in view of economic survey lists AI-powered disinformation as a major risk for India. Now, this one is that history suggests that a society progresses when it takes the middle path. Now, what is the middle path? You have authoritarian, you have libertarian, you have left, you have right. And you can look at this in detail, but only in the middle. If you go to extreme and have a very firm mind, yes, my mind is made up, don't confuse me with facts, society doesn't progress. In the middle. So you have that degree of tentativeness, skepticism, but you do take action, you do take this into account, and you can course correct. From extreme, it is very difficult to course correct. Here, you can course correct. Here is where India is. In 2023, India accounted for 15.4% of global growth in nominal GDP, and China 35%. So what we need to do is to reduce this distance between India and China. Whole of Western Hemisphere at 13.7. So we are contributing more to global growth than whole of Western Hemisphere, Europe, Middle East, and so on. Okay, so we need to increase further and reduce this gap with China. That is our policy objectives. Okay, these were some relevant thoughts. Now, some quickly some developments, and this is the most important development. Nirmala Sitharaman, if the current government gets re-elected to the third term, it's no been certain. It is still election is election until the last vote is counted and the results declared. Until then, you don't take anything for granted. But if it does happen, what is the intention? So we are looking at that development. This says it. The reforms will touch on all factors of production, such as land, labor, capital, and I'll add one more, digital infrastructure. So that is the intention. Now, factor reform, product market reforms are relatively easy, okay? But factor market reforms are very, very difficult. And this is the intention, and we need to look forward to that. Here is, environment is in this. Let's look at the CO2 emission per capita of the 15 countries, where is world average is 5, India is 2. So per capita, we are low. But in absolute terms, because our population is high, we are third largest globally. So it's in our interest to be environmentally responsible, reduce the energy intensity of our GDP. So every 1 trillion rupee we generate, we should have less energy intensity. And that's all that we can do. Per capita, we are low, but we'll increase as our income increases. This is the global military spending, because we are putting a lot of emphasis on defense sector now. Notice that US spends 800 billion, China 293 billion, India 77. So we are the third largest military spender in the world, more than all the, Germany and France, Russia, and others, and ours is increasing. So total is 2.1 trillion. Ours is still small, 77 billion out of that. So this is the defense sector and how we are trying to have greater Atmanirbharta in this. And this is the call to arms that we're doing. Now, another very major development is that the government has announced the formation of the 16th Finance Commission, and their role is very critical because they will examine for the next 5 years how the distribution between union and states and urban and local bodies, the proceeds of taxes are to be divided, and what are the principles and some of the others. So this is a very short terms of reference given to them. They have started their work. Another, the Arvind Panagaria, who was formerly vice chairman of Niti Aayog, is heading this commission. The other is the use of AI in taxes. So we are trying to broaden the tax base. This will come up in this, but Customs Department is developing a fully automated trade information system, Customs 2. We never thought that would be possible 15 years ago. The Income Tax Department has high level of competence in AI and its applications, and those are helping to broaden the tax base, also to catch the hawala and all the corrupt flow of money. AI is helping. Now, another development is that a lot of states, they want to be a USD $1 trillion economy, first 500 billion. So Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra is that the Maharashtra will become a $500 billion economy this year. And they want it to be a 1 trillion economy by 2033. But they want to 2031, but they want to achieve by 2028. So let's see how Maharashtra does. And Uttar Pradesh will be 500 billion economy next several years. There are other states, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, they are aspiring, Gujarat, to be $500 billion economy. Okay, so this is the, now another development is that because of government schemes, we have had lot of the access to basic communities have gone up quite a bit. So this is the electricity by the poorest households, and so electricity and others have increased. This is by Shamika Ravi of the Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister, and that helps in many other goals as well, including health. So just like electricity, water, and others have gone up as well. Now, another development is that in the global market index, India has moved to 16.3% weight, which is increasing. The latest is that India is at 18%, China is at 24%, 25%. China is declining, we are growing, and we need to close the gap. That would mean billions of dollars of flows into our capital markets. Cash and cashless spending as percent of PFSE and private the financial. And notice that the cashless is increasing very rapidly. And that is the Paytm and all the others that is happening. Where are the savings account additions that we see? In total saving accounts addition in 2023, from 14 to 23 is 1,970 million. And this is from the RBI data. Now, led by UP, MP, Telangana, and AP, Karnataka and Punjab witness a contraction in capex, but the others are increasing their capex. And that is a good sign. You will have a session with Radhika, who will explain it in more detail. The other is semiconductor. Tata, 3 semiconductor firms have been approved, the projects. One in is Assam. So the Northeast will develop as well. And there are different type of the UPI transactions and so on. I won't go into too much detail. To install the solar rooftops will be important. Telangana CM got a first dose of reality as he reviewed the precarious financial status of power utilities in the state. Power sector has accumulated Power sector has accumulated loans totaling 88,000 crores. So totally Telangana Transco is bankrupt. And this is very important that we have sound fiscal management. So again, if they have to do all this, they can't do any development type of work. And again, Radhika will talk about it a lot more. I won't go in too much into this. We are also getting the different states, Uttarakhand after Goa, creating the uniform civil code. And that will be helpful to Nari Shakti. Other states may follow. Very quickly, where are the investors in India in the stock market? Now notice the numbers. 30 million, 3 crore in Maharashtra. It tops, Mumbai is there. 1.5 crore by Gujarat. But Gujarat is less than Uttar Pradesh, 1.6 crore. And Uttar Pradesh will grow. We have Tamil Nadu, 80 lakhs. Karnataka, 85 lakhs. Andhra, 60 lakhs, and so on. So we need to have more and more people that should be investing in the market. And the ownership of NSE listed firms by the foreign investors is declining. The other major recent development is that fertility rate, children per woman is declining. 2.15 is the replacement rate. Globally, we are at below 2.15. In India, we are at 2. And we'll have session in which we'll talk about this to a greater extent. Okay. These are very selected recent developments, which I hope you can see how they could be helpful. Now, let me get back to the, okay. If you give me Ram a few more minutes, do I have 5 more minutes, Ram?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
5 minutes is okay. So I will go over the program discussion. Following this is knowledge gap, knowing doing gap in public policies by Professor Ram, and then science, technology, and public policy. This is a very neglected area because again, in India, when you hear about public policy, there's no discussion of science or technology, and we need to, that is why this topic is there. Then the data that we have been emphasizing, that session is there. After that, how do you diagnose fiscal health? And I will be talking about that. Key trends and issues in India's public finances. Radhika will talk about that. Evolving global trade architecture and return of industrial policy by Ashish. Strategic framework for outcome-driven policy by Mr. Ramakrishnan. Then we have India's foreign policy by Ambassador Shashank. We will have a video presentation of some type. We have to select that as part of it. And the practitioner's reflection on public policy planning and action in India from Niti Aayog by Urvashi. This is followed by India's initiatives for balancing sustainable environment with other goals. We have not usually given so much emphasis to macroeconomics. So we'll have a session on, a lot of you talk about GDP very confidently. How do you know what is included in GDP, what is not? So I'll give a framework as to how the GDP is measured, what the issues are, how you have to interpret it in a very nuanced way, and so on, and some of the issues there. Then we go to the managing India's urbanization. India is already majority urban or para. That is, those living near urban. India lives in villages, is that, which is not correct anymore. And we will talk about that. Political economy and public policy, because political economy is very key in each of these areas. Education, employability, and livelihood generation is another, and their interactions is from the Skills University. Social security is young Bharat prepared to age. And there's another myth that we have, oh, we are a young country and all that. Yes, maybe we are at this time. Two decades, by 2050, will be a relatively old country. We are moderately rapidly aging. Are we ready? Are you guys ready at your age to prepare for your old age? Introduction to health economics and management. Again, it's very recent in India to think of health as an economics and management issue, not as a welfare issue. So women-led development and public policy. Then we'll have a concluding session whereby Yash will talk about early career in public policy. So that is the structure, and I hope that you will judge this program at the end and not have a premature assessment of the program. Thank you for your kind listening, and dhanyavad.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your expertise with us and giving a comprehensive overview of the program. We can now have a short Q&A session, so participants can leave their questions in the Q&A box, or they can use the raise hand feature. We will also be having a participant's introduction, so participants can again use the raise hand feature to introduce themselves, and they'll be unmuted. Abhyuday Tiwari ji, please go ahead.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Abhyuday Tiwari. I have a background in economics. I have studied economics at the bachelor's and master's level. Currently, I work as a research analyst at S&P Global. Looking forward to look at matters relating to macroeconomics and social sciences from a more policy perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Ranveer ji, would you like to go ahead?
A very good evening. I am Ranveer from the Madras School of Economics, Chennai. I am pursuing my undergraduate in economics. I'm in my second year and looking forward to gaining a lot more knowledge from this particular course.
Thank you. Dr. Jay Pawarji, would you like to go ahead?
A very good evening to all. Thank you, Professor Asher. I am Dr. Zai Pawar and I am the director for Deepak Foundation. We are a civil society organization headquartered in Gujarat and majorly working in the field of public health nutrition, farm-based livelihoods and education, and hope to learn regarding various policies. Especially my interest is a lot in agri-food policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Gulab Rohitji, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I am from Union Territory of Dadra and Nagar Haveli. I am an income tax practitioner since last 26 years, and I am a independent director in the Shipping Corporations of India, Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways, Government of India, and I am a social activist also. And I am a BJP Vice President in the Dadra and Nagar Haveli. Thanks.
Thank you. Musrat Banuji, would you want to go next?
Good evening, everyone. I am Associate Professor. I took interest in public policy. I'm interested in it and do more number of courses.
Ma'am, could you please repeat that? I think your voice was not audible.
This is Musarra from Bangalore. I'm an associate professor in sociology at a degree college. I took interest in this course because I need to understand more of public policy because sociology and public policy.
Okay, thank you. Vasant Kumarji, would you want to go next?
Yeah, hey ma'am, I'm Vasant Kumar. I'm a graduate in architecture. So right now I am interested in administration and public policy. So I would like to join here and gain my knowledge and expertise in this. Thank you.
Thank you. So the remaining participants can unmute themselves or again raise their hand.
I'm Tarun Mathur. I'm a structural engineer, which is part of civil engineering. I'm involved in design of infrastructure projects. So my interest in public policy is to see how infrastructure fits into the overall scheme of things. Thank you.
Aditi ji, would you want to go next? Arjoma ji, would you want to go next?
Hello, I am Arjuna Maulik. I did my undergraduate from University of Delhi in Political Science Honors. Currently, I'm pursuing a fellowship under Center for Research in Schemes and Policies, which works as a government consulting firm. And yeah, I am working in the space of public policy. So I'm really interested in this course. Thank you.
Thank you. Khushbu ji, please go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Myself Khushbu, and I have done my BA in sociology and MA in women's studies. I have worked with a NGO Sneha in Mumbai for 2.3 years, and I'm really interested and curious to learn more about the course because how this intersects with the knowledge that I have gained over the years. So thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Participants can also leave their introductions in the chat box if they want. Cheryl ji, would you want to go next? Abhimanyu ji, would you like to go next? Yes. Ankita ji, would you like to give your introduction?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ankita Navani, and I have done my bachelor's in elementary education. And then I am doing my master's currently from NIPA, National Institute of Planning and Administration. And I'm doing my master's in education and development. And I'm very much interested in the administration of education and public policies, as it is also a part of my curriculum. But here I want to learn from these prominent people, and that's it. I'm very much interested in public policy.
Thank you. Manoj Kumar ji, would you like to go next?
Good evening, Madam Ramat, and good evening to all panelists and all experts in this. I am an ex-Air Force officer. Presently, I have completed my post-graduation in law and pursuing independent director's course. I think this particular thing will build up to my career, add value to frame policies, and to be a part of the directors board member and add value to that.
Thank you. Gulab Rohit ji, would you like to go next?
Ma'am. My name is Gulab Rohit. I am from Union Territory of Dadra and Nagar Haveli. I am an independent director in the Shipping Corporations of India, Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways, Government of India. I am a practicing income tax practitioner since last 26 years. And my qualifications also, I have sent a message. I am a BCom, MCom, MBA, CA Inter, Indian Administrative Laws, Corporate Finance, Corporate Governance, BRSR, ESG, Financial Accounting, etc. And I am a politician. I am a BJP Vice President in the Dadra and Nagar Haveli. Thank you, madam. I have to learn this public policy for I have to work with Viksit Bharat.
Thank you. Jivangana ji, would you want to go next?
रोटी पराग देती हूँ 1 घंटा
Okay, I think we can have the remaining introductions after the next presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. I would now like to call upon our next speaker for the day. So I'm delighted to call upon Mr. V Ramakrishnan ji, Visiting Senior Fellow IMPRI, Managing Director, Organization Development Singapore, for an address on Knowing Doing Gap in Public Policies. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm trying to see, as usual, how to get to share the presentation. Again, I'm not seeing the button here. Can you share it?
We will do that.
Yeah.
We will bring, yes.
I don't know. There seems to be a problem that I consistently have with this.
Some Zoom version issue. No problem. We'll bring it.
No, I just downloaded the latest Zoom version. Right?
You
Please.
cannot see share screen, sir?
No, I'm not able to see share screen. I see meeting streaming on YouTube, everything, but
at the bottom, in between, you cannot see a green button?
No, I'm not seeing a green button.
No problem. We'll bring it.
1 minute. It's gotten out of the, yeah, okay. Now, got into further problems. Zoom has decided I have to rejoin the meeting. Right? Okay, I'm there.
Yeah.
Am I visible? Am I visible? Am I audible?
Yes. You can see the screen, sir?
Yes, I can see the screen.
Okay.
The only issue is there's a lot of, what do you call it? interactions which I have put in, which will make this lecture very dull otherwise, but let me see if I can work on it to see, make it most interesting. Yeah. Right. Firstly, thank you for having me over. And I'd like to begin by, I'm requesting remote control. Let me see if I can get remote control. Can you give me a remote control? Yeah. Yeah. I've got remote control now. Okay. But unfortunately, the animations that I've put in won't be visible. So I'll start out by first thanking IMPRI and all the participants. The summary of Mukul's presentation to me is very fundamental to what I'm going to say. Economics as a science cannot be separated from social well-being. The two are interrelated, and economic and social well-being is facilitated by sound policy making in the political sphere. And political policy making is critically dependent upon the strategic direction that the political power sets. If there is no strategic direction, there will be drift, policies will be confusing, essentially because we know very little, not willing to learn, and hence we are not able to do. Imagine politics, economics, and society as three circles and treat them as Venn diagrams mathematically. It's only where they overlap you will get a benefit for the public, right? So to my mind, the doing is just the compass. The direction comes from the GPS. That's knowing. If you don't know, you can't do. And if you do without knowing, it is neither efficient nor effective nor productive. I repeat, if you do without knowing, it's like blind man walking, right? It's like saying, getting into a taxi and telling the taxi driver, please go from here to there and come back in 10 minutes. And largely that has happened in many situations in our country over the years. We don't have to get into that, right? Now, it's going to be fairly intense, this session. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, it's moving ahead too fast for my liking. Okay. The learnings that are intended, renewal requires continuous learning. Hence, the question is, can you set public policy in stone? For example, the British laws that were set in 1886, hasn't there been any learning about how criminals behave in the last 120 years? Why have we stuck with those laws? So if you're going to renew society, you need to take hard political decisions, learn from the mistakes, and come upon the economic dimensions to benefit society. So policy framework, moral is policy frameworks have to have continuous renewal for sustained delivery of outcomes. Now, outcome is simple. It's what you have to deliver. No more, it's not about an activity. I can cycle very hard, but if there's no chain, I won't move forward. Or if the cycle is on a stand, I won't move at all. I won't fall down, but I'll waste a lot of energy. So the question here is, which we're not covering in this session, but I will touch upon it somewhere or the other, is what guides policy frameworks. It's a very clear, well enunciated, strategic dimension that is vital. If you have to set strategic direction for a nation, you must believe in what you stand for as a nation. Right? I'm not vouching for any specific cultural or religious activity, but you must know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, you cannot deliver what you want. So you don't know what you want. And why is that? It's because people work in comfort zones. They know, but don't do. They know AI is coming. They know Chat GPT is coming. What are we doing about it? Right? In fact, the iPhone is messing me up by saying download Chat GPT. I have not done it as yet. But I'm a very avid photographer, and I can tell you what artificial intelligence is doing to post-processing in photography is absolutely phenomenal, and it's all happened in the last 6 months. The emerging reality is unknown and or uncertain. This is a fact. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen day after tomorrow? We neither know nor can we be certain even if we know. So there is a justifiable fear of the unknown, but it is self-limiting. It's like a child learning to walk. If it doesn't fall down a couple of times, it's never going to walk. It's going to be sitting on its bum all the time. So this is the not invented here syndrome, which has been very typical of many political, social, and corporate activities for the last 70, 80 years. At least I've been consulting for 25 years and I've seen this any number of times. Policy framers need to understand that these uncertainties or understanding trends alone will not deliver. Yes, the trend is the rupee has been falling against the dollar. What has happened in the last 4 years? Why is the rupee during COVID? It was predicted that the dollar rupee parity will go to 100 and euro will go to 69. Nothing like that happened. Why? Because we're extrapolating on trends, and in policy making, understanding uncertainties is far more important than analyzing trends. Now, one of the pitfalls of data collection is we tend to do a trend analysis all the time. Don't do a trend analysis. Do an uncertainty analysis and look for the discontinuities. The success in policy making is in addressing those discontinuities. You don't have electricity. Oh, we have delivered electricity to all but 18,000 households. Now, 18,000 households is a lot, and it's just not a question of going and pulling a wire and connecting it. There's a huge amount of investment because many of these households were in remote areas. So the trend in electrification was good, but the uncertainty was lots and lots of tens of thousands of our citizens didn't have power. Policies have to be framed to address the emerging needs and wants. No point telling me I'm starting a great kindergarten school. I'm a 70-year-old. I'm not going to kindergarten. But is there an emerging need for quality kindergartens? And is it going to be the same model that happened when I went to kindergarten? Or is it a completely new model? Because the children of tomorrow are going to have a completely new set of needs and wants. And the children of today have already expressed that. And part of the confusion is they're neither here nor there, but they are learning. Therefore, I come to the subject of this lecture. The knowledge gap has to be understood to deliver a continuous stream of value and ever-growing outcomes to citizens. Now, all very important words. Continuous stream. There's no point doing something for 1 year and forgetting it about it. For example, in an election year and forgetting it about the next election. And it's ever-growing outcomes. What is an outcome? An outcome is something that you have to deliver that is of value to the citizens. And it's changing continuously. Ask yourself, what have been the outcomes that you wanted? Many of you are graduates. What is it that you wanted when you joined college? What is it that you want now? And many of you have signed up because obviously you're looking for a different set of outcomes for yourselves, and rightly so. But this is happening at every level, whether it is clothes or watches or motorcycles or travel or food, it is happening, right? What has to be delivered by when, to whom, at what cost? This is the question to me that has to be answered in public policy. If we can't answer these questions, we have to do what I'm going to show you now and help you frame the answers, frame the questions from which you can elicit the answers. Right? Now, bit of a diversion. What do I mean by saying we're in the knowledge of comfort? Please look at the bottom left-hand square. Normally I animated it so you won't see so many things on screen. Incremental performance. That is what administration is very good at. They don't want to upset the apple cart. And all of us stay within that. And we just don't move forward because either our knowledge and competence is low, as is shown on the x-axis, or we are uncertain about the issues and challenges. I mentioned uncertainty in the last slide. I'm repeating it. Hence, we prefer to do the knowns in the highly competent versions and ignore what is actually required. And the transition occurs where the knowledge is low and the unknowns are external. Then we move up the chart into management, where there's a near term. We call this mission and management, right? And we talk about substantial improvement programs. Government talks about schemes, about when a scheme like MNREGA is a substantial improvement program, banking, etc., etc., etc. I'll come to that in a minute. Now, when you go into areas where the known is low and the unknown is reasonably acceptable, you have to look for transformation strategies. And unless the strategies and transformation is clear, you cannot set policy. Policy derives from strategy. If strategy changes, policy has to change. That is an act of faith that you need to accept. And believe me, many corporates are also blind to this. And lastly, in this graph, you have the direction, which is strategic purpose and vision. And that leads to innovation and breakthrough. If you're going to be in the lower box corner, why talk about innovation and breakthrough? Be content doing what you're doing a little bit more each year. Take home a salary of 6% more. Don't worry about it. Plan your children's wedding, schooling, education. Don't worry about it. So the strategic purpose and vision has been significantly different in the India of today from the India of, say, 15 years ago. There is an intent. There is a purpose. We will be number 3 country by so-and-so time in terms of GDP. We will be one of the fastest growing countries in the world. We will be a self-sufficient Bharat, Viksit Bharat, the Atmanirbhar Bharat. These are all strategic purposes and vision, and that's what drives policy. Something that we need to recognize. If you don't have that strategic intent, progress will not happen, and I'll explain in a few minutes, right? Let's the first box, the knowing doing, where your lower box is comfortable, right? It's bureaucratic streamlining. It's Aadhaar. Aadhaar was an innovative solution in 2015, but today it's a routine item. There's no point talking about Aadhaar and its innovation. It's gone. Agriculture schemes. We've had a number of schemes, some successful, some not so successful. The not so successful one were the breakthrough things which try to change direction. We must realize that. So we went back to a state and accepted MSP scheme, which is not going to work either for the farmer or the country. That time will tell. Internet access. I was in the Northeast last week and I went to some pretty remote parts, including the Bangladesh border. I was getting 5G Intel, Airtel, and I was driving up there. I was doing my complete business on the net. It's absolutely phenomenal. I don't get that in my hometown and the hills in the Nilgiris here. Electrification and water. These are routine items. This should have become a policy issue at all. And I'll explain why later. Social security. Women getting access to finance, banking. These are all social security issues which should have been done 50 years ago. And even though it was in the zone of comfort, we did nothing about it. So what did we do? We went into management to address these issues, direct benefit transfer, pension schemes, payments to agriculturists, alternate energy received a big push, defense production received a big push, infrastructure development, banking and reforms. These were all good. But are these strategic decisions? Maybe defense is a strategic decision, alternate energy is a strategic decision. Infrastructure development is a routine item, and just because you ignored it for 50 years and suddenly you go wake up about it, it's nothing game-changing about it. We need roads, we need water, we need electricity, we need sewage treatment, so on and so forth. So then what happened? If you look at the areas where our issues and challenges, the knowns were low, and there was a lot of uncertainty. COVID management, we learned on the fly. In the first wave, we made mistakes. In the second wave, the state said, we'll take care of it. We don't want this center to interview. They messed it up, and then the center stepped in again. It was learning. And quickly at that, free nutrition. We continue today, 800 million people get free nutrition. That is a strategic move. Make in India is a huge announcement. PLI scheme has already generated more than 21 lakh crores in benefits and likely to increase. Vaccine development. Nobody gave us a half chance. And probably only the Indian vaccines have passed the grade 3 trial, stage 3 trials now. Space exploration. These were all elements which were a stretch from our zones of comfort. Nobody gave us a half chance in many of these. For example, space exploration. The Mangalyaan, there were jokes in New York Times which all of you are familiar. Now, let's come to the strategic direction and purpose that I mentioned. Establishing an Indic identity. I'm not talking about Hindutva, I'm not talking about religion, nothing here. Who am I? If I go, when I was living in Europe, in Germany, in the 80s, 70s, I was known as a Paki. Anybody brown was a Paki. Pakistanis had an identity, but Indians didn't have an identity. Right? So an Indic identity is about the Sanskriti that Mukul mentioned. It is our identity. It can be anything. You can be an Indian Christian, you can be an Indian Muslim, you can be an Indian Hindu, an Indian Parsi, an Indian Punjabi, Indian Jain, Indian Buddhist, whatever. But what is our identity? That identity is defined by our Sanskriti, our culture, in which our scriptures are part of it, but not all of it. It's also our behavior, our hygiene. If I look at the way people drive on the road, it's pathetic. Is that our culture? Global scale and play. We are no longer looking at minor issues and saying we'll grow incrementally. There has been a dramatic shift. For example, yesterday, India has signed with Greece to activate UPI for transactions between Greece and India. Oil, rupee transactions are on the increase. Right? Oil buying from different sources is a global play. And there's enough to mention that the respect in the global markets has gone significantly. Digital transformation has been phenomenal. It's just not about UPI and Repay or the India stack. Right? Today, a small person, I was asking somewhere in the jungles of Kaziranga, I had a tea. I took out 10 rupees. He said, "Nahi saab, please give it in phone pay." I said, "Why?" He said, "For me to go to the bank to deposit this money is a 1-kilometer drive." See, it's a transformation. Please understand, if that guy had 500 rupees in the back of Beyond as in his kitty, anybody can come and raid him. It's a wild area. Very little is being discussed about blue water strategy. For a simple fact, if you transport the same volume or weight by water, the cost of transportation is 1% that of railway, which is 10% that of road transport. Already, trucks are being shipped from Chennai to Bangladesh by sea. Already, Hyundai ships its cars for shipment onward to the west and into Delhi via the Mundra port. These are happening around us. These are all dramatic strategic shifts which are going to have large scale thing and require a huge amount of knowing, and I'll come to that in the next slide. Missile production. We have had ISRO and other things in DRDO for decades. But how many launches have we seen in the last 5 years? Where we had a desultory 4-5 launches, we are seeing 2 or 3 almost every month. Hydrogen fuel. We are already at the cutting edge of technology. And hydrogen fuel is going to be significantly more important than all electric vehicles. There is a very beautiful article by Toyota today, which says that a EV vehicle carbon footprint is 90 times that of a hydrogen vehicle. Anybody interested, I can share it. Now, what were all the seminal factors that directed this? Online education. How were people educated to use UPI? How were people educated to go and get vaccinated? How were people educated to access help centers in case they had COVID? This was online education. Then you had the Agniveer scheme. It's a brilliant scheme, but now it is dated. It is, I don't consider anything more seminal. I'll move it to the lower box the next time you see this lecture. And teaching and learning schemes. I mean, I have personally helped people buy smartphones so that children could learn during COVID on the smartphone. And these schemes are working, and those children are now into high school and beyond and into college. It's a phenomenal area. We take it for granted. But these were all how we overcame lack of knowledge, lack of competence, and addressed uncertainties. That's the key to knowing and doing. Sorry about that. Right. Now, this is a very busy slide, extremely busy slide, but normally I would have taken it one box at a time. What are the gaps in policy framing? First, let's look at the knowing gaps. It's the planning gap. How can you plan if you don't know what's the requirement of the population for healthcare in the next 20 years? Do you think a lady giving birth to a child today has the same healthcare requirements the lady when she's 70 years old? There's a planning gap. We have to fill it up. You can't just open up a hospital at that time and say we'll treat geriatric patients. It requires planning. Same thing with food. Same thing with clothes. Same thing with electricity. We're very happy we have got electrified all villages. But if electricity is growing at 9-10% every year, we're having a phenomenal need to grow it much, much faster than what we are growing now. Roads are looking fantastic. But our cars are increasing at the rate of 6 to 8% and motorcycles at about 11% annually. So roads are going to remain crowded. What about the intracity roads? So the planning has to be addressed. And the knowledge. For example, will the motorcycle market grow continuously? Or the sedan, the Maruti Alto type of vehicle grow endlessly? If you had asked people 5 years ago, they would have said yes. Today we know people prefer SUV to the smaller vehicles. We know that motorcycles are no longer primary means of transport for many office goers. They are a secondary means. Either they take a car or they take public transport, which has improved tremendously. And partnership gaps. We all talk glibly about PPP. Who's your partner? We talk about interstate and center-state relationships. What's the partnership there? If the gap may be political, but should it be retained at social and economic level? These are the three gaps in knowing that have to be addressed. And in doing, how do you select your partner? How do you select what you have to plan for? How do you select the areas of ignorance and improve upon it? How do you govern? What are the lapses in governance? And I always make this point. The central government doesn't rule. They govern India. This concept that we are a ruled nation is very colonial and has to go. So what are the implications of governance? Transparency, accountability, integrity. These are all fundamental values that we need to do. And then the most critical gap is execution. Right? You may have a 10-step execution process. Each of you can pull out your calculator. And if you have an efficiency of 90% in each of the 10 steps, please calculate what the net efficiency of the project will be. It will be less than 30%. Therefore, execution requires excellence of the highest order. If you take 99.99% delivery efficiency, you will end up with 99% project success. Simple math, don't take 10, just do 0.9 into 0.9 into 0.9 5 times and 0.99 into 5 times and see what comes out. Now, moving forward. Any questions till date? Am I going too fast? Am I loading up too much? Dr. Arjun?
No, sir, please go ahead.
Okay.
Participants can ask if they have any questions. Yeah, you can raise your hands.
Yes. Now, the planning gap. First is clarity in defining outcomes. It is not providing electricity. Electricity is a means for a family or a business to generate an income and improve the lot of life for his family. That's the important thing. Water is not because you want to drink clean water or wash yourself with water. Water is a fundamental requirement. And the outcome is you have to deliver clean water. For example, Singapore, the government prides itself and says, you can drink water from my tap. If you fall ill, I'll take care of your treatment for life. When will you reach there? Then the specific cost benefit. We cannot do things endlessly in government. There has to be a benefit for the specific cost that is taken. Now, should the benefit be short term, medium term, long term? That will depend on the project, on what the requirements are, how it morphs and stuff like that. Right? For example, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav has the story, it's on YouTube. He went to the Prime Minister with a grand railway station design for one of the major railway stations. And very proudly told him, sir, we have taken a 10-year perspective on this and, we've provided for all of it. The Prime Minister, as I'm told, listened to it very carefully and said, Ashwiniji, please come back with a railway station design that will be good enough 50 years from now. That's what I mean by saying take a perspective. Don't look at the cost. If we had built our major highways in the 70s and 80s, as M.N. Dastur suggested, we would have spent a fraction of what we are spending today. So infrastructure has to be laid out. The knowledge gap, identifying cause and effect. This is fundamental. This is what knowledge is about. Collect data, you analyze, and then you come to a conclusion. You must know what causes something, what's the effect of it. If you can't analyze cause and effect and the public policy framework, if you don't provide good health care for women who are delivering babies, what is the effect? Malnutrition in women, malnutrition in children, increased cost to the exchequer to treat them. In fact, it's very interesting. When RSBY was introduced, 68% of the insurance cost went in treating the lady of the house, because after 5-6 children, most of them were anemic. So there's nothing left for the children, which is why the Gujarat government increased it to 3 lakhs from 1 lakh, and the government of India has raised it to 5 lakhs now. And even that is insufficient. Right? Now, when you're partnering, and you have to have a long-term value for money congruence in the knowledge. I'll explain value for money later. Value for money does not mean buying the cheapest. Value for money is what Indians are very good at. Right? Tell me, you go to the streets and you buy a shirt, you get 300 rupees, you get a shirt at discount. Same thing, I go into a branded store and I pay 2,800 rupees for it. Is it value for money? Depends on your value system. Depends upon what you have, how much money you have. But there are fundamentals of value for money, which I will explain. Understanding motivations. If you are going to be a central government and you're setting policy, you must also understand the motivations of the players, the state players, the public sector units that you've undertaken, the public at large, citizens themselves, right? And every little bit counts. If you give free electricity, what is the motivation? Motivation is to get a vote. But is it sustainable? Who is going to get harmed? And what is going to get lost if you provide free power? These are all questions which we need to raise as knowledgeable Indians to the governments that are giving to us free. As Mukul said in the first slide, nothing is free. Somebody pays for it. Right? For example, people have this concept, people below the poverty line don't pay taxes. Of course they pay taxes. When they buy something and GST is there, GST is a tax. Nothing is free. Maybe 55% of the food grains they get tax free. That's a different issue. But when they buy soap, when they buy toothpaste, when they buy shoes, when they buy clothes, they're paying taxes. Now, that's the knowing part of it. This is conceptual. This is long-term, necessarily long-term, which has to be reduced to medium-term and then indexed into the short-term. Now the doing is reverse. You start with what you have to deliver immediately so that the mid-term objective is met and the long-term outcome is delivered. So the two have to go hand in hand. It's not either this or this. It's not more of this or less of this. You have to know and you have to do. And you have to become good at both. Selection gap, I've already explained the objective of selection. What's the goal conflict? There will be goal conflict when there are different political parties in power in the states. How do you resolve them? Right? Then focus on the objectives, which also I will cover using Maslow a little later. Then the governance back. Governance is about setting strategy and ensuring it is implemented. For implementation, you need a structure, you need systems, and you need risk management. Our structure is the IAS, the administrative structure. How good, bad, or ugly they are, I would leave it to you to decide. But unless the structure becomes effective and efficient and productive, we cannot go far. The finest of strategy, badly executed, is worthless. Average strategy, brilliantly executed, will give you what you want. And one of the elements for structure is sound systems. Digital transformation helps, digitization helps. Those are all systemic, right? Then there's risk management. You cannot avoid risk management. Risk is the flip side of strategy. If you want to become a high quality defense production unit, you are going to upset. The risk is several of your defense equipment suppliers are going to be mad at you and choke you. There is a risk. How to minder that? You have to plan for it. You have to have knowledge about it. You have to get the partnership accepted. So the knowing part of it becomes essential, both the strategic setting, risk management, and systemic progress. And how do you execute? Only in 4 ways. You need a product. If it is UPI, it's a product. There is a process. It's online. It's without, you don't need a bank account to do it. You can do it mobile to mobile. It involves people, and people need to understand it, which is where the learning happened I mentioned earlier. And there is a time and a cost to it. Initially, all of it was free, but slowly people are charging 10 paise, 15 paise, 20 paise per transaction, and that will increase because everybody has to make money. So this is broadly the approach to the knowing doing gap. If this top 3 parts can be understood, the rest of it is just detailing. Let's get into that. So what's the first knowledge you need? The first thing is knowledge about citizens' expectations. Does the person in Andhra want the same thing as in Tamil Nadu, as in Rajasthan, as in Punjab? It's different. It changes. And it is not set. It will be different 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And policy has to handle it, provide for it and handle it. Clarity of deliverables. What have you got to deliver to whom by when? That's what I mentioned earlier. Understanding economic principles. You cannot violate economic principles. Freebies violate economic principles. Implications of financial commitments, right? Four states have borrowings close to 30% of their GSDP. That's horrible. You're going to get into severe problems. And what is the recourse to? If a state goes turtle up, the recourse is to the central government. So the center-state relationship and partnership, I reinforce, becomes important. Long-term thinking, cross-functional management. Railways cannot be built if there are no roads to bring the passengers in. Railways cannot be built if catering services and food is not integrated. Railways cannot be built increasingly if the quality of the electrical services to the railways is poor. Defining VFM goals, I'll come to VFM. Institutional strengths. We need to strengthen our institutions, which is where I mentioned the processes involved for administrative structures have to be streamlined. This is the knowing part of it. Now, the doing part of it is knowledge about partner selection. Who do you select to work with is very critical. Setting realistic strategic outcomes. No point. For example, yesterday I was listening to a very interesting lecture by Mr. Annamalai, an outstanding individual. Somebody asked him, "You're promising you'll remove TASMAC, which supplies liquor, and the income for the Tamil Nadu government is 45,000 crores a year on that. How will you substitute it?" He said, firstly, it's a 3-year plan. I cannot substitute it in the first year because it's 20% of my direct income. Second, we have figured out that the arak which comes from the palmyra tree, if I don't draw arak but use it for other industrial work, I have a potential for 1.01 lakh crores of GSDP annually. Third, we will start a rehabilitation center to detoxify 20% of the population who are alcoholics. Now, that is what I mean by having clarity of strategic outcomes. No point saying I'm going to remove the TASMAC and boozing philosophy in Tamil Nadu. That's a secondary issue. What are the outcomes? How are you going to deliver? Project management and coordination skills. We've done that at IMPRI several times, and that's a course I would always encourage you to take. Financial management, risk management, and risk is an extremely ill understood subject in India. There's a fantastic Canadian standard called COSO, which I would recommend everybody to look at. Board governance versus policy governance. Board governance is about strategic direction. Policy governance is about execution. Understanding communication and technology, encouraging innovation and performance management, monitoring and evaluation. These are fundamental elements that go into it. And again, with this slide, I can actually close up. The rest of it is just to explain a few things to you in the half an hour that I have. So how do I summarize? For knowing, you need to understand expectations. That's called marketization, where the government thinks and accepts market-driven forces. Mukul will cover that hopefully in the economic analysis. Needs analysis. You need profound knowledge for needs analysis. Very profound. I won't get into it, but the very simple question is, how many t-shirts do you have? How many t-shirts does your son have? And how many t-shirts did your grandfather have? That tells you how needs change. None of it is wrong. All of it is right because it's the reality. And the solution orientation is fundamental to knowing. No point trying to say this is the problem. Forget the problem. What's the solution? In doing, legitimacy. The government has to have legitimacy. That's a sovereign power. So the architecture and the leadership is important. I've already spoken about it. And the implementation skills. Can babus who have sat in air-conditioned cabins all their lives suddenly become active and start top-class execution? I have my reservations. Problem solving and experiential learning. Now, experiential learning is vital because that provides the continuous feedback for improvement of policy, and continuous monitoring of policy is required for improving the strategic direction that you set. So it is a completely closed loop system that has to be activated. Now, if any of you want to read it, please note this down. The whole concept of knowing and doing gap comes from 2 Italian authors, Veronica Vecchi and Manuela Bruscioni, which is fundamentally written to improve the efficiency and outcome deliveries of the Italian civil service. Right? Now, simple method of setting your strategy. Choose where you want to be. If you're in the lower box, with comfort, knowing, doing gap, I told you, you're in a comfort zone. Will you be competitive? Will you be productive? Do you want to be competitive but not productive? Do you want to be productive but not competitive? Or do you want to be competitive and productive? These are the 4 strategic calls you need to take. The detailing I won't get into because again, each is a lecture in itself. Now, I've placed this. At the core of knowledge and framework development is people development. Whatever strategy you have, whatever policy you have, whatever chat GPT you have, right? A very close friend and a customer who has about 100 software designers with him. And I was asking day before yesterday, what is chat GPT doing to you? He said, I need chat GPT plus 4 designers. I can dispense with 96. But you still need the 4 with a different skill set. So you're not going away from people development. It's central, right? So I've already clarified what I put into this box is the previous elements, knowledge about citizens' expectations. It's a routine item. We know what it is. Clarity of deliverables. This is uncertainty to it. Governance challenges and partnership gaps is what we need to address. And we know the management challenges and the knowledge gaps. And you go to the right, you have to innovate, you have to challenge. And if you go to the left, it's about doing. Doing efficiently, doing productively, and doing it to deliver the outcomes that have been set. Right? Mr. Ranveer Sharma, let me tell you, if you look at these slides in isolation, it'll be gibberish. Right? People have always asked me for these slides. Yes, they're colorful, they're nice, but it's not about slides. Please listen in carefully, and if you have any doubts, you can communicate with me by email. I will answer you in detail. I owe it to you. Right? Now, how are you going to identify what people need and what motivates? Right? It's Abraham Maslow's construct, assessing needs and wants. Physiological, breathing. Are we providing clean air? Food, water, safe sex, sleep, homeostasis or stability, homeostasis or stability, excretion. The Ganga became dirty because we couldn't control our excretion. Period. This is fundamental. And any public policy that cannot address these on an ongoing, continuously improving and continuously enhanced basis is a failure. This has to be addressed day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, decade after decade. We're eating more, hence scrapping more, and hence we need larger sewage systems. Simple. So we need more water, we need more food, so on and so forth. Second level is safety, security, body, employment, resources, morality, the family, health, and property. Today, with GPS-enabled property mapping, farmers are using GPS to tell government officials your records are wrong. Security, using technology, right? There's a story in Karnataka about a farmer from Gulbarga who did it. You can refer it in YouTube. Love and belonging are fundamental. Friendship, family, sexual intimacy, we have to provide for it. Now, if you don't have decent housing, can you provide for any security or intimacy for the family? It's fundamental. It's a very strange way I'm putting it, but think about it. If you're living in a jhopatpatti with just a cloth separating you from your neighbor, how intimate can you be? Right? It really doesn't matter because we've still produced at an alarming rate, but that's a different issue. Esteem. Now, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, and respect by others. Do you understand now what I mean by placing an Indic identity at the top of the chart? Can Indic identity improve your self-esteem? Ask yourself, how many of you were proud about what happened on January 22nd? Right? In Indic identity? But do you know the statistics? Ayodhya is going to get 5 crore visitors this year. Total income into GSDP for UP is going to be 4 lakh crores. And into the government exchequer, it's 25,000 crores. It's phenomenal. It comes the self-esteem, respect, and confidence that you have for your culture, for your Sanskriti. And again, yesterday I was listening to this session. Somebody asked Mr. Annamale, how will you improve income? He said, very simple. Temple tourism. We have learned from Ayodhya. Mukul mentioned Tirupati. Now Tamil Nadu is learning from Ayodhya. and saying we have more than 40,000 temples. Even if I activate 1,000 temples, I will make a lakh of crores. So self-esteem is something that's fundamental. It cannot be a colonial mindset and say we have self-esteem. We do not. We have to be proud of our Indic traditions. Again, I'm not talking about religious or practices. I'm a South Indian. I like my idli sambar. But that cannot prevent me from liking a good chapati and butter chicken masala. That's part of my Indic culture. Then lastly, it's about self-actualization, moralization, and problem solving. For example, as I get older, I need to provide for education. I need to provide for online education. For example, IMPRI itself is an example. It's not a basic school. It's a very high-end school. I need to provide better geriatric care. I need to provide palliative care. Again, not to boast, but the Rotary here in Kunnur, a small town of 50,000 people in Nilgiris, has opened a 38-bed palliative care unit. Because simple, people have to drive down 2.5 hours and they cannot go 4 times a week for palliative care. We have to provide for it. We have to plan for it. We have a knowledge. Our society is aging, as Mukul pointed out, in 20 years. Most of us, I mean, many of us may be here, may not be here, but most of us are going to be 50 plus. So how are you going to provide for larger hospitals? Now, this I have recast. And this is an extremely important slide to address what I've just told about the knowledge, knowing, doing gap. First is your needs are the quality of living. You need to live. It's not a choice. It's not an option. You could have more of something, less of something, but you need all of it. Whereas the wants are optional. If I want to go to the Himalayas and pray in comfort, right, sitting on a rock, that's quality of life for me, my aspiration, my self-actualization. But I don't think the government is obliged to provide it. He may have to provide security, but once you provide security at the basic level, it has to be for everybody. Right? So the quality of life and quality of living, it's fundamental to understand the difference in public policy setting. Today, India is focused on 90% on quality of living. That is rightly so, because it is still not anywhere near global standards. But believe me, in 10 years, we're going to be talking about quality of life. Right? It's not an AIMS that is important. Yes, we need another 20 AIMS, 30 AIMS, but what are the facilities that the AIMS has to offer? As we age, we're going to have disease, we're going to have coronary diseases, we're going to have geriatric diseases, all those need to be treated. So, policies have to primarily help quality of living. I've spoken about Maslow's needs, and enhance quality of life, address essential needs or the aspirational ones. Right? Can I go to a pub with my girlfriend and can they be safe there? Right? Can I ensure that I have an alternative, if I have a drink, to get some source safely, get me safely home? These are all issues which will become important at the local level. So there are 22 parameters. I'm not going into all the 22 parameters because it's a huge list. What I'm trying to say is that data analysis and thing has to be decided ahead. So if you want to do the planning, you've got 7 items. If you want to do the knowledge and doing gap, you have 6 items. And these items are not so important. One is management issues, the other is governance issues, and how do you take them up? First, identify cause and effect. Policy framing requires a scientific temper. This is exactly what Wembu said. This is what the others have said. What is scientific? Scientific is identifying cause and effect. If I put these 2 reagents together, I'm going to get this vaccine. It's cause and effect. That's what the scientific temper is, not an opinion. Right? For example, nutrition ensures health. So if you have to ensure health, you have to ensure nutrition. Productivity requires infrastructure. So these are 2 very plaintive examples of cause and effect, but you need to understand it as a policy framework. Easy to say, again, in a PowerPoint, but if I'm looking out 25 years ahead, what is it that I want? Will Vande Bharat still be relevant 25 years from now? May not be. I may be looking at magnetic levitation and driving through the countryside at 800 kilometers an hour. Right? Long-term, VFM incongruence. Short-term gains should not cloud long-term value delivery. That's very important. You're seeing in Paytm an example of short-term gain and a beautiful business built up is costing the owner a lot of tragedy and grief. Exactly what I see by long-term and short-term. Right? So what is it that we need? I'll go through this quickly. Employment, employability, quality of living, and quality of life. These are the 4 factors that a policy framer has to look at. Employment potential. Are the staff that we generate employable? And employability, which is creation of jobs. Right? And facilitating the creation of jobs is by providing skills, which we're already doing. Basic needs we are not yet addressed fully, but we're addressing it. And the higher end wants is going to take time. We don't need to address it now. So how do you look at it strategically? Look behind you, look above you, look below you, look beside you, and look beyond you, and then you get through. This is by my good friend Henry Mintzberg, with whom I've written a book on the subject of strategic thinking as seeing. You have to be able, you should have the ability to see ahead. How do you see ahead? Revert back to the first slide. Incremental, you stay here, nothing much happens. Substantial, something happens but not much. Transformational is difficult, but the simple example of transformation is a butterfly coming out of a caterpillar. It's reversible. If it's reversible, it's a change. It's not a transformation. Then you have breakthrough. Now, many of the schemes and many of the strategic directions that we're taking, including Atmanirbhar, Viksit Bharat, are all breakthrough strategies, which is why we are not able to come to grips with it easily. It takes effort, it takes time, but it will happen because it's an enabling thing that requires structural and systemic change. I've covered this. I won't go into it. So how do you cascade? For successful policy, national outcomes have to be clear. From that, you get sectoral objectives. And from that, industry goals, corporate targets, and individual outputs. So you notice a national outcome becomes an individual output that we as citizens have to deliver. What are the outputs we deliver to the government? We generate jobs, we pay taxes, we contribute to the health of the nation, we maintain our Sanskriti, our Niyat, everything. These are all individual outputs that we need to contribute. That's quality of living. Now, improve per capita is one measure of national outcome, but as Mukul explained, it's just not improvement of per capita alone that is important. How productively are we doing it? How effectively are we doing it? We don't have to compare ourselves with China or US and say we are at $4,000, they are at PPP and all that, and they are at 50. We will never reach that number given that we have 1.4 billion people. Let's look at what our people want, deliver what our people will keep them happy, the quality of life and quality of living. That's what we should do. For that, we have to be competitive. To be competitive, we have to be productive. To be productive, we have to use capital well to grow profitably. Profits generate cash. Cash goes back into the business. And to do that, individual productivity becomes important. Therefore, it is extremely important as honest tax-paying citizens, we improve our individual productivity. What is productivity? If I can do something in 10 hours today, can I do it in 9 hours tomorrow? That's productivity. Simple definition. It's time-based. Right? From a political perspective, you have to fulfill the economic and social functions, provide continuity. The role of form, fit, and functionary. This is important. Form is important. The political establishment sells the idea, the strategy. That's the form. Does it fit the needs to address the quality of living and the quality of life of the people? And the functionary is the people who both deliver it and use the services. 3 have to go together. They're not independent. This is the political, economic, and social items that I spoke to you when I opened the address. Now, the state, what has it to do in practical terms? It has to generate income. Social entrepreneurship, holistic renewer, because employment generator is short and medium. It is also holistic. Your PF, your ESI, all these are social contributions, EPOF, everything becomes important. And these are not just also important. These are all building blocks, fundamental building blocks. It's a holistic renewer. You don't do minor renewal. When you renew the system, when you renew your banking system, it took you 5 years, but you cleaned it out. And today we have acknowledged one of the better banking systems in the world. NPAs are down, profitability is up, cash generation is good. Therefore, they're able to finance corporates. Therefore, they're able to use the cash productively. The capital grows the business, grows the economy, and so on and so forth that are delineated in the slide. So you are also an employer and an employment generator. You're a regulator. You're a market playmaker. Governments should not become marketeers. They are market playmakers. They can facilitate. The government in Bonn or the embassy in Bonn can facilitate trade with Germany, but it cannot do the trade itself as it was doing about 20 years ago. And you're a visionary. That's the strategic direction I spoke about. So I took some esoteric concepts 10 slides ago and I'm moving slowly down into practical applications. Now, can you sit back in an armchair, have a drink in hand and say, I'm going to be a visionary? No, you can't. Visionaries are born. They're one in a lifetime. And we're very fortunate that we have one. Right? So now the most critical element is value for money. Yeah. What is value for money? Yeah. It's got 3 E's: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. You cannot choose between one or the other. You have to use resources, which are only 2, capital and cash, economically. It's not buying the cheapest. It's buying the ones that will give you the best outcomes. Therefore, it meshes with the input, which is plant and machinery and knowledge. Right? Output, that gives you an output of goods and services, which delivers the outcomes or the results. So efficient use of economic use of resources, efficient use of inputs, effective delivery of results, combination of this is value for money. So you can ask me, where are the people here? Can you exclude people from any one of this? They are the underlay. They are and do, they facilitate and they make. So this is value for money. Be economical, be efficient, be effective. Deliver the outcomes that you want. Mr. Nitin Gadkari always talks about outcomes. I have to get from Bombay to Delhi in 8 hours. Right? I have to provide for a 6-lane traffic today, but I have to provide for 8-lane expansion tomorrow. When I pass through the Ranthambore forest, I have to provide for an overpass so that the animals can go underneath. These are all outcomes. Whether you drive at 120 kilometers per hour or 180 kilometers per hour, or whether you have a rest stop nearby is immaterial. So you have to have a very big picture of what an outcome is. And let me tell you, in every workshop that I have done, differentiating between output and outcome, everybody will agree at the end of the workshop, come back next day and do exactly the opposite. They will call an output an outcome and an outcome an outcome. So it requires thinking, it requires learning, it requires planning. Now, one simple example I'm using for understanding motivations, I'm using PPP, public-private partnership. PPP has to deliver outcomes to citizens. It's not about 2 companies getting together to make money. Let's be clear. Whereas in a corporate initiative, I'm putting in money into corporate. As a shareholder, I want to make money, period. I have to create value for the investors. In PPPs, you have to create value for the citizens and society. Accountability and responsibility need to be shared. Right? Is it a marriage or a relationship? Let me tell you, it's a marriage. It's not a sambandham of any choice. Is it a marriage of convenience that you get together today and part tomorrow? No, most of the projects are 20, 30 years old, which is what about most marriages last these days anyway. Is it an uneasy marriage? Yes, it's an uneasy marriage. You have to learn to manage it. And for your information, the success rate of PPP worldwide is 3%. That's a big number. Each consideration impacts policy. Don't get into PPP for the sake of it. It's a very difficult animal. How do you bridge the gaps? This is again a complex slide. I will not get into it now. I'm going to request Mukul to address this when he does the economic reasoning. But essentially, you have to look at the sort of functions, the activist, the intermediate, and the functions that a government has to do to address these. Right? I will leave it at that and come back. I've already covered this slide, this impact of knowing. Right? Now, how do you do it? First is you learn to sense. Politically, socially, and economically, you must be clued into what's happening in the world around you. You can't wake up tomorrow and say ChatGPT is gone. Today, I have something called Renew 5, which can do a video in 30 seconds. I'm already working with the AI unit where I can go into the picture of a bird and say, please change the background color. I want to see cirrus clouds. It's a typing I'm doing and it gives me a scene within the next 2 minutes. It's happening. I'm 70, but I still keep playing with it because that's the knowledge and learning that's available to you. You have to understand the global scenarios, right? For that, you have to understand the national ethos. What is the national ethos? Oh, we are against beef. Yes, it's in your constitution. Directive Principle 46A says the cow has to be protected, not beef. So understand your national ethos. It is there. You have signed off on the constitution. Secularism is not something that was signed off. Secularism is part of our tradition, our Sanskriti. I don't need a special mention in a constitution, in a law to make it happen, right? All of us have had classmates of all religions. All of us have staff across sections of society, so forth, friends of across societies. So it's part of our national ethos. Can I apply the same policy that I developed for Punjab in Kerala? The ethos is different. But in the global scenario, I must take the least common factor and make it relevant to both the citizens. So understanding global scenarios, oil available, buying it from Russia, irrespective of all the sanctions and threats, is understanding our national imperative. Understanding the national needs that we need for fuel and we need to grow is our resource requirements. What are the possible strategies? Only two: value restoration and learning to respond. Value restoration is address potential choices now. Am I going to stay with petrol, or am I going for hydrogen, or am I going for hybrid, or am I going for full electric? Address it now. Or if you're not clear and it's uncertain, have a mix of policies. And your ability to learn to respond is what decides the growth and the ability to deliver value for money. So if you're growing healthily, growing productively, and you're using money effectively, you can assure yourself that you have a strategic framework for policy making that is reasonably sound. Is there room for improvement? Of course, there's room for improvement. Has it got to be a quantum leap? In some areas possible, in some areas not so possible, right? For example, intra-city traffic, we need a quantum leap, but what's the solution, right? Every month, Bangalore adds 10,000 cars, or every day it adds 1,000 cars. You can't grow a road at accommodate 1,000 cars a day, right? So this is a framework which focuses on economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. And what this says is, this is how you translate value for money into reality, the doing part of it. So you set objectives to enhance prosperity, increase incomes, and address quality of living. Set productivity goals to improve quality of life and wealth. Your SIP program in the stock market took incomes and converted it to wealth. It's a living example for you. And the result is that the foreign private initiative and the domestic market initiatives are now almost coming together now. So that means we're no longer dependent on foreign capital as we were 15 years ago. We're getting Atmanirbhar. Why? Because we're converting income into wealth, the simple scheme. Right? I'm not talking about crypto, nothing. I'm talking about simple SIP, which our citizens are leveraging phenomenally. Right? I won't get into governance, but governance is a very interesting word. Do you know governance and Kubernetes have the same origin as cybernetics? It means the steersman. In Greek, the guy who got the boat was called the Kubernator. Coordinator, governor, and so on and so forth. Okay, I have a few minutes. I'll try to wrap up. Right? Right. I won't get into this. Okay, here is a 10-step process. First, the data, readiness assessment. Right? Agreeing on outcomes to monitor and evaluating result areas. Key result areas are the key outcomes you have to deliver. People talk glibly about KPIs. You cannot have a KPI unless you have a KRA. Right? KRAs are the critical outcomes you have to deliver, which is the Maslow's theory, which I just quality of living, quality of life. I detailed it for you. Baseline data on indicators. Where are we today? This is all the data collection. Planning for improvement. This is the analysis. Monitoring the results, M&E. This is checking it. This is vital in our progress. And this government, as I am told, has done phenomenal work to make sure that the ministers are forced to monitor what they commit to. Evaluation. Have we delivered the structure, the ownership, the periodicity, reporting the findings, using the findings for improvement and sustaining the M&E system. This is the 10-step process which is available. I'll skip all of this. And the only thing that I will close with is the people part of it. I told you the knowing-doing gap. This is going to happen to you very often. Success is not failure. Failure is not fatal. That is something we all talk about. It is the courage to continue that counts. If you trip and fall, get up and walk. You're hurt, get treated. But the problem is homeostasis, which I mentioned in the Maslow's group, which is why I'm particularly is very ill understood. We need stability. You cannot have a policy which says, I give you 2.5 lakhs to build a low-cost home now, and then say, sorry, next year is not available. One of the things this government has done is it has always signaled months ahead about a scheme that's going to be enhanced or discontinued. Singapore government announces the changes in its GST 3 years ahead of schedule. It announces the strategy for public transport in cost increases 2 years in advance. And it's all in the matter of a few cents, but it matters to people. So when change is announced, usually there is denial and fear. This won't last, this is pseudo, this is not real, this is not people are asking for. That comes out of fear. We grieve. Why? Because what we are familiar with and what we know is now getting snatched from us. Right? There is resistance. This is human. This up to this, it's completely human. Now, if you're an intelligent human being, you will pilot, you will demonstrate, and you will understand. Right? If I go to a PHC, a public center, we have restructured several PHCs here. They used to be pathetic. Women were delivering babies in winter where it is 2 degrees Celsius and the babies were bathed with cold water. So we piloted to them. We put in a solar plant, got them hot water, and today all the PLCs are coming to us. We did the same thing with the general hospital here. Simple result. People of the upper middle class who are going down 2.5 hours away to Coimbatore for minor ailments are now going to the local hospital and paying a fee for it. Pilot, demonstrate. Understand that this what happens. If I start paying the hospitals, the government is able to get better doctors, they see more practice, so the understanding improves, and that is when the acceptance happens. So in knowing and doing, when you don't know, you're going to resist. When you start doing, you're going to resist. You have to pilot, you have to understand, you have to demonstrate, you have to accept and move forward. So in summary, what is it? Know what has outcomes that have to be delivered and deliver what you have committed to. How? I've given you various steps. There's a lot more to it. Actually, when Mukul and I have done this, this is a 16-hour workshop. Right? There's a lot more basics have to be covered. A lot more applications have to be covered. A lot more case studies have to be gone into. But this is an ocean in itself. And in that ocean, we can still stay alive and not drown, provided we accept our Sanskriti, we accept our ability to renew, we accept our ability to learn and move forward as a nation. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll be happy to take.
So the floor is now open to questions. Before that, I would like to invite Professor Mukul Asher, sir, for the chair's remarks.
Ram, this was a very well articulated knowing doing gap in public policies. It was very rich, lot of implications. And I would request the participants that this is what Ram has talked about is something that has to be mulled over and thought about as the different experts provide their thoughts on different topics of the program. So this one was set up in the first session because this will have implications throughout and the applications throughout. So thank you, Ram,
Welcome.
very much for the exposition.
Thank you, sir. Participants can leave questions in the Q&A box or use the raise hand feature.
You're still in the lower left-hand box. Move out, ask questions. Right.
Sir, I had a question.
Please.
So how can policymakers in the future ensure self-actualization for a country like India, which is so diverse? And from what I remember from psychology, self-actualization was a very individualistic process, which only a few people are said to be able to achieve.
Right. See, self-actualization in the Indian context, we imagine sitting in the Himalayas and praying. That's not self-actualization only. We can be decent, honest citizens, right? Who, in our own way, if you can meditate easily and get the benefits of meditation in terms of your health, you don't have to be an ascetic to do it, right? If, as an individual citizen, you're willing to participate in policy making and contribute to the growth of the citizen over and above your routine work, that is actualization again. So the ability to reach out and contribute both to society and to your own personal development is how I define actualization. Okay. Now, how do you do it? If I can give you food, I can give you security, I can give you a healthy lifestyle, right? For example, again, I don't mean to labor the point, but take the Ram temple. It's going to cause a tremendous number of ascetics to move in there. When you move into those ascetics, there's going to be a spin-off. There are going to be people who are going to be learning the Shastras from them, the Vedas from them, and this and that, and all together. You're going to have Vedic schools. Those are all elements that encourage self-actualization. If 100 of us go to a Rig Veda class, maybe one of us will understand it. But that process has started, and that again comes back in our context of understanding our Sanskriti, right? Our culture, our identity.
But again, I'm
Yes,
highlighting
please.
the diversity point. So when we're talking about India or like an Indic Sanskriti or an Indic culture that you said, how do we define the culture? Because when you're talking about Ram Mandir or Ayodhya, there were a lot who saw it as a very fundamental part of their culture, but there was a lot of opposition again to it.
Right.
So yeah, how would we define a combining point for the Indian population?
Right. It's a good question. The very fact that the opposition was accepted and a majority decision ruled itself talks about the Sanskriti. What is our Sanskriti? Essentially, it makes it very clear we are accountable as human beings to our own progress. We are responsible for the children that we beget, the families we belong to, and the societies we belong to keep it clean, to keep it secure. Right? We have to do this. The ethos is one of integrity. The ethos is not one of pulling fast ones. This is what, to me, my Sanskriti is not about going to a temple and praying Bhaja Govindam 6 hours a day. I don't do that. Right? But for example, day before I did the Tithi for my father. It's an essential part of our Sanskriti. Why? I accept the concepts that goes with the Sanskriti. Right or wrong? Right? Now, what's wrong with it? It may not be very modern to accept that and, pay a pujari and get things done. That's not the issue. So belief, what is a value system? A value system is belief in action. So if you accept the belief systems that we have a value system, and the total collation of the value systems is what your Sanskriti is. And that's what your aspiration is, to get into your Sanskriti. Right? It can be anything. If you go to the Benedictine monks in Christianity, they have a similar status. If you go to the ascetics within the Islamic world, they have it. In Jains, they have it. In Parsis, they have it. In every religion, it is there. So the progress from an external orientation into understanding yourself and thereby contributing to society is what aspirations are about. Now, if you require aspirations as getting more cars, more t-shirts, that's a different issue. That's the quality of living. I'm talking about the quality of life. Clear? I've answered your
Yes.
question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jomaji, would you like to go next?
Thank you, sir, for such an enlightening lecture.
Thank you.
We at Center for Research on Schemes and Policies, we are working with various governments to develop skill development. And you said one of the responsibilities of the government is to is to provide jobs. But at the same time, the youth, they are not so much skilled that they can be employed. How far do you see this policy of skill development and national skill development corporations coming into picture? And all of these policies, like you also mentioned about the PLI scheme, integrating of PLI scheme and skill development will actually implement and will actually provide jobs and will further the government's initiative of providing jobs.
Right. Good question, but let's take this in perspective. Firstly, government's job is not to provide jobs. Government's job is to create employment opportunities. It's up to you or me to take it or leave it. To do that, they have to create the citizens or enable the citizens to be employable to the relevant sector. Right? How do you do that? You're not going to do it by overnight. What is national skill development? National skill development cannot stand alone on its own. The NEP is a vital element of the national skill development. Why? It gives you opportunities to learn at your pace. You're not height bound to get a 10 standard or a 12 standard. I can come back anytime for a degree. You get a higher degree, you're going to get more money. That's a fact of life. The government can't influence that. Government cannot mandate. If I have a BSc, this has to be my minimum wage. There's one minimum wage across the country. So employability comes with education. But education alone, education can develop certain basic skills. The talent that you have can go by education or it can be developed to meet specific needs of the nation. For example, if you are going to have a chip manufacturing facility, you need to have guys who know how to run those machines. Right? If you are going to be dependent as Infosys or Wipro was in starting your own universities, 30 years ago, they all started their universities. Brilliant. But what's the cost? It was very helpful for Infosys and Wipro that they earned in dollars. So the cost of the training centers was not so material. But if every MSME has to start its own training and knowledge development, there will not be anything possible. But can the government just come out with something on skills development and do it? I think they have to stay relevant to their community, to their customers. See, and again, it's a standing joke that I have. In India, we treat customers as customers. Right? That's not going to work. Because the younger generation is going to develop skills. This existing education system has neither built the desire to learn nor the desire to build the knowledge or the skill set. So we have a 10-year transition, hopefully 10, less than 10, where the current cohort of the people in the 25 and 20 suddenly realize that they need to go through the skill development to get employed. Now I'm seeing that here in the hills, where the government has outrageously spoiled people. And I have people at 20, 25 who cannot speak a word of English, who have failed the 10th standard, whose parents are tea estate workers, each taking home about 20, 30,000 rupees a month with all facilities provided. They didn't have to earn. And these children are now not willing to go and learn the skill sets. So what's the issue? Serious unemployment all over. But let me caution you on this. It's something that Mukul and I discussed 2 weeks ago. With UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and the Northeast states developing, and they're going to develop extremely fast, we are going to see serious labor shortages and skill shortages across industry, whether it is textile, whether it is manufacturing, whether it's MSME, whether it is chemical, pharma, because if I can go from Ranchi to Prayagraj and make a living and go back on the weekend and do my agriculture on my father's land, which is now laying fallow, why should I come down south to Kanyakumari? You are going to see a massive social shift here. I'm only projecting this. I do not have data. I'm only doing, it's an opinion at this point. Let me be honest. But we're already seeing signs because the local government started saying you northerners are not welcome and people have started moving back. Whose loss? So you cannot treat it as a simple package. Let me revert this. If your nutrition is poor for the first 20 years of your life, what is your ability to learn? So should I address nutrition first, or high school requirement first, or skill set development? It has to be a holistic effort, right? Now, nutrition is fine. But if the girl child has not had proper nutrition or proper care at that age, what happens at the age of 18? She gets married off to an illiterate, and that's the end of it. But they are 50% of our 49% of our working population. So one cannot look at this or that. You're going to require a whole series of policy outcomes that need to facilitate this. The end outcome is what? The citizens of our country between the age of 20 and 25 should be employable in this industry. Now, what does PLI scheme do? It targets those industries and says, look, learn in this, you've got a job here, opportunity. Right? There are economic benefits to PLI, which we won't get into it. I'm talking about the social benefits of PLI. Right? You know, I was interviewing somebody for a driver's position and he said, sir, my son works for Apple. Like, you see the pride? What does he do? Sir, he's an assembly line operator. But that assembly line operator's son is not going to be an assembly line operator. He's going to be a graduate. So it's time-based. It's not going to happen overnight. The graph will not go like this. It's a slow hockey stick curve, which will drive slowly. That's my own estimate. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's very good answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have one more question in the chat. Manoj Kumarji, would you like to go next? I can read out the question.
Yeah, you
Yes,
may
sir.
please read out. Sir, can I seek this question, sir?
Please.
Sir, while implementing any policy, what happens that every segment of the citizens are taken care? Like recently, I encountered a problem with my mother applying for a debit card. Okay, they yet have to go to the bank to get this particular credit card renewed. So there is a policy that yes, you can do the renewal through online and everything, but physically they are yet to go to the bank and get the credit card.
Yes. I'm not sure that policy is what your understanding is right. I applied for a credit card with an excellent credit card.
I'm talking about a debit card.
Yeah, I'm just telling you this. I was turned down a debit card because I am 65 plus. Okay. Now, I'm not familiar with any credit card application being online because it is the KYC requires to be filled out physically first time. Once you've done it and you've got everything established and you've got your Aadhaar card done and you've got everything presented to them, now even Aadhaar is in question, whatever proof of address identity you give, right? You have to go into it. Now, why is it done that way? Because the number of people who are using false SIM cards and who are doing false registration. SIM card today, you can't submit a photograph and get the SIM card. If you need a SIM card, you have to go to the station. And the company which is issuing the SIM card has to photograph you in a specific format and then give you. Whereas 2 years ago, you could give a passport photograph and get a SIM card. Why? Because people had 21 SIM cards, 300 SIM cards. So I'm not sure whether your policy is right. Understanding of the policy is right. And if yes, you have to understand that the national policy is one aspect to it. But if it's going to make the transaction more secure, the state policy and the institutional policies can be tighter, if not violating any of the citizenship rights or norms, human rights. That's something we need to bear in mind. Right? For example, carrying computer cables and other things in checked-in baggage is not accepted at some airports in the south. It's not the rule. They're saying it's our rule, sir. Do they have the right to do it? Yes, they have the right to do it. So we have to understand the policy in its totality. I understand that if something personal happens, I felt very irritated. I've had an association with State Bank for the last 40 years and they turned down a credit card when I was going abroad. Okay. They said, sorry,
Same.
sir, can't give it to you.
The same experience for me too.
So I can date your age now. Right? Right. So, okay. So you carry cash. That's what you do.
Yeah. They call you for doing the process, and finally they tell you your card is you're rejected for some lame reasons.
No, not lame reasons. They came back to me and said, sorry, sir, this is the policy number, rule, whatever subsection A. I didn't bother to read it. I said, are you giving it to me or not? They said, sorry, sir, we can't. I said, forget it. Throw the paper out. Now, you're talking about this. Let me tell you a real life story. Do you have a locker in any bank?
I had previously, I had cancelled it recently with the
Yeah,
change
good
in
thing you
rule.
did. Because the KYC has changed in the last 1 year, 4 times. And each time
Yeah.
you have to go and sign 14 times on the dot.
Yeah, yeah. Once that came in, I closed it.
Yeah, I can't afford to because my wife's jewelries are all there and she never uses it. I have to keep it safe till my son comes along. Right. That's that.
Okay.
And also, the point here, Mr. Kumar, is public policy cannot address 100% of the population's needs. There will be some diverse.
No, what I am telling is, well, whether they are making any review about this ineffectiveness.
That is something that we have to raise. Why don't you raise it at the Prime Minister's public grievance cell? It's online, and see
Yeah.
the response.
Sure,
That you
sure.
can.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mukul, sorry I interrupted you.
No, I think we do need to wind up the session.
Yes, sir. So if there are no more questions, I would thank you, sir, for coming in today and for such an
Welcome.
enlightening and engaging discussion. And we hope to see you at future IMPRI events as well.
Thank you.
So I would, Professor
Thank you.
Mukul, Asha, sir, I would now like to invite you for the chair's closing remarks.
Just thank you, everyone. And I hope you found the first day of interest and useful. And I hope you continue to show the same enthusiasm for the ensuing sessions that we will have. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right, sir. Thank you. We're grateful to all who've been part of today's event. With day 1 coming to a close, we eagerly anticipate your return for day 2, where we have presentations by Ambassador Bhaskar, Balakrishnan ji, and Dr. Soumyadip Chattopadhyay ji. Thank you, everyone. As we come to the end of day 1 of Fundamentals of Public Policy, Cohort 2, an online spring school program, a 1-month immersive online introductory certificate training course, I, Remat Arora, researcher, IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose a formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, New Delhi. We are grateful to all our experts for day 1, Professor Mukul ji and Mr. V Ramakrishnan ji, for taking out their valuable time and giving an opportunity to the participants to learn from this online certificate program. We thank all our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. Readings for the session have been shared in your email, and the video for the session will also be shared soon. We look forward to seeing you for our second day of the certification course on 2nd March at 6:30 p.m., which is tomorrow. We're grateful if you're watching us later on on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join us at future IMPRI events, IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good evening. Thank you.